I want you to turn in your Bible because I want you to get this. So open your phone, look it up on Google, or maybe you have a physical Bible, to Galatians chapter 6. Galatians 6. I want you to get this. And while you're doing that, let me tell you about two things. One of them you've missed, and one of them I don't want you to miss. Now, the one you missed is that this weekend was our Freedom Weekend. And you say, well, what's freedom? Freedom is a life group for everyone that ends in a retreat. And it ends in a weekend here at the church that really people, just dive deep into God's presence and allow him to heal hurts, allow him to empower them, make their purpose clear. And we had the biggest freedom retreat we've ever had. It was overwhelming. All the people here, the atmosphere was unbelievable. If you were a part of Freedom yesterday, I see some of you here. Why don't you just tell everybody how great Freedom is? Tell them it was awesome, wasn't it? I'm telling you, if you want more of God and you want God to do something that just have a supernatural experience with him, I want you to talk to one of these people in Freedom Church. It's overwhelming this weekend. So that just happened, but you can become a part of a Freedom group this coming fall, and they are for everyone. Everybody needs it. And then you can be a part of the retreat that'll be in the fall. I want to tell you, that's what you missed, but here's what I don't want you to miss. This Wednesday is First Wednesday, and we're trying to kick off the summer big. So this Wednesday is not only First Wednesday, but it starts our kids event for the summer. So you can bring your children. They'll have an incredible time. And then also you'll get to be a part of a great service. And as Pastor Josh mentioned, we got a great surprise after service since we've got some longer days to enjoy and hang out. So don't miss First Wednesday. If you've not made one or you haven't made one in a while, be here this Wednesday, 6:30. I promise. You won't regret it, okay? So be here this coming Wednesday. All right, so today I'm going to wrap up. It's the finale of the Planted series, which we've been in now for over 6 weeks, and it's just been one of my favorite series we've ever done. And but here's the deal: it's kind of a series that it's got a different goal. A lot of times when we do a series, it's about tackling a specific kind of topic or a specific passage of Scripture. But this one, we've went from Genesis to Revelation all the way through Scripture. Because the goal of this series has been this: I want to change the way you look at your faith. I want to get you to see through a different lens or filter. And the filter that I wanted you to see your faith through is that of agriculture. Now, I know that doesn't sound all that, amazing and well, but I'm telling you, if you'll take off kind of the way you normally look at your faith and look at it through the lens of agriculture, farming and planting and plant life, you will be blown away at what God will show you. Like for instance, I don't know that you ever considered it, but do you realize that God chose to reveal his nature, his kingdom, and to unfold the events of the Bible? He could have done it any time in human history. He chose a time when people understood agriculture the best. Like he could have chose the Industrial Revolution. He could have chose the internet boom. He could have chose today and did it through YouTube. But he said, no, if you want to grasp how I see spiritual cultivation, you look at it the way a farmer or a gardener looks at it. See, I don't think most people realize how much of this is the lens the Bible's written through. Like, for instance, every religious festival throughout the Old Testament given by God was connected to a farming cycle. Not only that, but some of the most foundational teachings of all the Bible, things like the fruit of the Spirit and faith like a seed of a mustard plant. Those are foundational through that lens. And not only that, but some of the most pivotal moments in all of humanity, like sin entered in the Garden of Eden. And Jesus restored the will of man in the Garden of Gethsemane. And the first person to ever see the resurrected Jesus was in a garden. And so again and again and again, you start to see this, and it also reminds us this: maybe that's why we miss what God's doing in our life, because we don't see it that way. See, God's working in an agrarian process, and we work on an Amazon Prime process. He's cultivating, and we're used to one-click buying, And so all of a sudden you start to see why maybe I'm missing what God's doing, and that's why we did this series. And so today I'm going to share with you what I think may be one of the greatest tools that you could ever grasp in understanding this. And today I'm going to share with you the power of sowing and reaping. The power of sowing and reaping to finish up this series. Now, I'm going to start today with a confession. Now, confession, they say, is good for the soul. Bad for the reputation, good for the soul. And so today I want to confess to you that I am a creature of habit. I use the same products every time. I am same morning routine. I go to the same stores, and I stay with something to a fault. And I'll give you an example. Like, for instance, we tend to go to the same restaurants to get food because I'm a creature of habit. And so there's one particular restaurant that we go to get carry out, and every time I go there, nearly every time, they mess up my order. The pattern is this, that I tell them what I want, I go pick it up, I bring it home, it's wrong, and I complain to Kayla. That's like the pattern. And we do this again and again and again because I'm a creature of habit. And so recently we did this, and I try to be abundantly clear. Like when I'm on the phone, I'm like, did you get that? Can you repeat the order? This is exactly what I want. I've even gone to spelling it. Like I want light sauce, like LIGHT sauce. And it just doesn't matter. I go, I make the order, I pick it up, I bring it home, and it's wrong. So I'm complaining to Kayla, and Kayla says to me, just out of nowhere, she just listens to my complaining. This time, though, she says, hey, she said, if you're not happy with what you're getting, why don't you change where you're going? And I know for you, you're like, yeah. For me, that was like, duh. Like, why do I keep going back to getting something that I'm not happy with? Like, why do I keep going to this place? Like, it was an epiphany. It was this, you're right. If I'm not happy with what I'm getting, I can choose to go somewhere else. And the reason I bring that up is for this. I want you today to have an epiphany like that. That if you're not happy with what you're reaping, you can change what you're sowing. That if you're not happy with what you're getting, God has given you the power to change what you're receiving. You see, a lot of us buy into this lie that we just have to endure life. We just have to endure what we're experiencing. You hear it in people's language. They say things like, well, this is just the way it's always been. It's the way it's always going to be. My mama was this way. I'm going to be this way. It's just the way it works. It's just my cross to bear. And what they're saying is, I don't have any influence over this. But that couldn't be further from the truth. God has given you influence. He's given you the power through sowing and reaping to change what you receive in the circumstances of your life. I'll prove it to you. For instance, when God made Adam, the very first man, he put him in the Garden of Eden. And as you read, here's what you'll discover. God did not put Adam there to simply experience the garden. Look in Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. I want you to see this. It says, then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to simply experience it. No. He said, God put him there to cultivate it, to change it, to influence it. That if he didn't like the way it was put together, he had the power to change it. See, it's very clear from this that God's intent from the very beginning was not that life just comes at you, but instead that you have a measure of control over the circumstances of your life. That if you're not happy with what you're reaping, God's given you the power to sow something different. And this tool, this idea of sowing and reaping is so powerful, it can change any circumstance in your life. Now here's the problem though. Most people think they understand this concept. So therefore, they think they understand kind of the overall of it. But what I've noticed is they understand enough to grasp it, but not enough to harness it and change the circumstances of their life. And so today what I want to do is I want to help you harness the power of this. And I know it's familiar, but I want you to grab hold of it so you can begin to change what you're getting out of your life. See, we all have kind of this general idea of it. Like let's do a little example. Like, let's say that I'm just going to ask you a few questions. Now, here I've got 3 vats of seed. And the first one is corn. The second one is beans. And this last one is grass. I guess like Kentucky bluegrass or something, It's like, and so you grasp the gist of sowing and reaping. Like for instance, if I want to plant corn, which one of these would I choose? This one, not this one. Okay, so if I want corn, I choose this one. Gotcha. Okay. Now let me ask you this: if I wanted to plant beans, which one of these would I choose? In the middle. Like not this one? No, this one. If I wanted beans, I'll take this one. Okay, all right, I'm with you. Okay, now one more time. If I wanted to plant grass, which one of these would I choose? Not this one. This one. This one is the one I choose. Okay. So what I hear you saying is to get what I want, I have to sow what I want. Okay. To get what I want, I have to sow what I want. Okay. To get more grace from other people, I have to sow grace into other people. Oh, okay. So to get more attention from my spouse, I should sow what into my spouse? Oh, okay, I get it. To get, everybody, I want to reap a blessing from someone. The only way to get that would be to sow a what into who? Oh, I get it now. To get what I want, I have to sow what I want. Now, the reason that is so profound is because most people are need-minded instead of seed-minded. See, most people are focused on what they need and not on the seed that will give them what they need. See, need-minded people focus on the need. I need this from my spouse. I need this in our finances. I need God to do this. They're need-minded. But here's the thing about being need-minded is focusing on a need has never met a need. Yeah. Never. No one's ever focused their way into provision. Focusing on a need has never met a need. And so what happens when you just focus on what you need is you just become more frustrated that you need it. Like I become more frustrated with my spouse not giving me attention. I become more worried about my finances that are in a mess. I become more disappointed with God who's not meeting my need. On the other hand, that's people who are need-minded, but people who are seed-minded, on the other hand, they don't show up and look at their need and say, well, I need it, and I'm just focused on what I need, and I'm frustrated I don't have what I need. You know what they do? They show up and see a need, but because they're seed-minded, they plant a seed for what they need. It's like a farmer who shows up at a field. He doesn't show up at a field and say, I need corn. I hope someone brings me some. I hope God plants it. I hope God does. You know what a farmer does that needs corn? He plants corn. So over the next few minutes, I want to take you from being need-minded to seed-minded. I want you to think right now about some of the things you need. What do you need? You need God to do something in your finances. You need God to bring someone, an encourager into your life. What do you need? What do you need in your marriage? What do you need with your kids? What do you need? And I'm going to help you move from need-minded to seed-minded because you can change your circumstances. You can change what you're sowing in order to get what you want to reap. I want to show this to you. Now, you got to understand a few things to move from need-minded to seed-minded. Here's the first one. You reap what you sow. Okay, Galatians 6:7, do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked. Now what that means is that it don't matter who you are, what excuses you've got, there are certain laws with which God has put in this earth that you can't get around them. Like one of them would be called the law of gravity. Like I don't care who your daddy was, I don't care how talented you are, I don't care what unique circumstances. If you come up on this platform and jump off, we're all going to watch the law of gravity, you experience it. That's the law. And so what this is saying is, hey, don't think that you have an exemption from this law. God can't be mocked. He's put laws in here. And this is the law. A man sows what he reaps. He sows what he reaps. Now, this is simply stating the obvious, that I will never sow a tomato seed and get an orange. Right? I mean, I sow tomatoes, I get tomatoes because a seed can only produce in its like kind. And so what that helps us understand is that we get that physically, but imagine how profound that could be in your life spiritually, relationally, and emotionally. That's why Paul in the next verse, here's what he says. Whoever sows to please the flesh, from the flesh they'll reap destruction. And whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit they'll reap eternal life. Here's what Paul's saying. Get a hold of this. You reap what you sow, to the positive and to the negative in every place in your life. And you know what that means? At school, you reap what you sow. You reap on the test what you sowed in the classroom. In your career, you reap what you sow. You cannot sow irresponsibility and reap the reward of promotion. In your relationships, you reap what you sow. The more friendly you are, the more you sow friendliness, the more you'll have friends, which all of a sudden has become a great epiphany for some of you that are lonely. You're not that friendly because you reap what you sow. It's also true in your words. Now, in this room right now, this room, whether you realize it or not, is filled with radio waves. It's filled with radio waves because this equipment that I'm wearing, what's on the stage, it's filled with, now you can't see them, but they're still here. And I am convinced that if you could see spiritually, every time you open your mouth, you would see seeds bursting forth. Every word you've ever said is a seed that will bring a crop back into your life. No, I'll prove it to you. Look at it in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. It's a verse that many people are familiar with. Look at it. It says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Those who choose one, and most people don't get this part of the verse because they're not seed-minded. Those who choose one, eat its fruit. Now, let me ask you. He says that your words have the gift of life and death. And he says that the words you say, you're going to eat the fruit of those words. Let me say it this way. What does fruit start as? Seed. Your words are seeds. You can't sow angry words into your kid and not reap an angry child. You cannot sow words of criticism into your life and not reap self-doubt. Don't be surprised when you go around cursing all the time when everything around you is cursed. Because you sow and then you reap what you sow. And so if you want to change your life, change your career, change your marriage, change anything about your life, start sowing some different words and you'll start reaping some different results. And it'll change things in your life quicker than anything else. I'm reminded of the very first counseling appointment that I ever had. I started ministry as a counselor. I wasn't a pastor when I began. I was just a counselor. And I remember this couple that came in and wanted to sit with me. I was very young. And they came in just ready to kill one another. I mean, their disposition, you could tell huff and puff and don't you touch me, don't you look at me, don't even breathe the air that I'm breathing. You know, like that was the tension when they walked in. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. You know, and so we get into it and I start going through the textbook of saying, now, you know, today we're going to try to have, you know, some bridge building and get to understand. So why don't you start? And before I'll tell you what's wrong. She's wrong and she does this. And if she was more like my mama and all this. And I mean, it is getting crazy quick. And she doesn't wait for him to finish. Immediately I tell you, he's not worth 2 cents. My daddy would whip your tail if he was still alive. I mean, just awful. And I'm just trying to play referee to keep, the only thing these two people agreed on was getting a divorce. I mean, it was just a mess. And I'm going down like the checklist of, okay, try this question, do this, maybe open this, and none of it's working. And so we do this for about an hour, and I get to the place where I say, you know what, this is going nowhere, so guys, we're going to end. But here's what you are both Christians, aren't you? And so why don't we at least end with just something that looks Christian? Why don't you, I've heard all the negative, why don't you say just one good thing about the other person? Just one good thing. And of course, you know, it's kind of like they're both back to each other, turned in their chairs. And I said, sir, you know, you being the head of the home, why don't you go first and just tell me one good thing about your wife? And he said, well, I have to think about it a minute, you know, and he just sits back and he's just, you know, drama. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, she's a great cook. That's what he said. She's a great cook. And immediately, because I can see her, a little bit of her rage just decreased. And she leaned over him and said, well, I didn't know you liked my cooking. And I'm thinking, oh, we've got some progress. And I said, okay. I said, now, ma'am, why don't you say something, just one thing nice about your husband? So, well, I don't know. There's just so few things. And she said, but I'll tell you, he's awful mean, but he's hardworking. He is hardworking. And a little bit of his rage went down, and he looked at her and said, well, I didn't even think you noticed. And she said, no, I've noticed. I mean, you provide our home, and it's a beautiful home. You got cars. You provide for our kids. And he said, well, I wish you'd have said that a long time ago. And she said, well, I wish you'd have known my cooking was better. And, it's like, well, there's more than just your cooking. There's also, and I'm just like, don't mess it up. Just don't mess it up. And here's what happened is that I promise you that by the end of that session, they're hugging and kissing on each other. They look like two honeymooners that walked out of that office, because you reap what you sow. You're never going to have the marriage you want if you reap the words that your spouse can't receive. You are never going to have encouragement if you keep sowing discouragement. You are never going to see your kids grow closer to you if every time you open your mouth to them, it's negative and tearing them down, because it's a law. You reap what you sow. Now here's the second one you got to know. You reap later than you sow. You reap later than you sow. See, I'm not an expert, but I don't think you can put an apple seed in the ground on Monday and get an apple on Tuesday. There's reaping time, or there's sowing time and reaping. There's time, which is why you have to be seed-minded. Farmers are seed-minded, and here's what James says about a farmer. The farmer waits expectantly for the precious harvest from the land, being patient about it until he receives it. He waits expectingly. See, here's the thing. This is one of the things why we got to change your thinking from need-minded to seed-minded, because farmers look at planting differently than we do. When we sow, we want immediate results. How is this not fixed yet? How's my marriage not better? Why isn't my finances put together? That's not what a farmer is. Perfectly content sowing something into the ground and knows that it's going to take a little time. See, the farmer knows that there's germinating taking place, that there's roots growing down deep, that it's preparing to bring forth fruit. The farmer, when he puts something in the ground, he just knows it's a matter of time before he sees it. Farmers wouldn't say this, but here's what they live by. Farmers live by faith. They live by faith. And if you're going to reap, it's going to require faith. If you're going to reap, it's going to require faith. There's some of you, you've started tithing. You began tithing and you haven't seen any blessing come yet. Keep the faith. There are some of you who you've been giving your best at work. You've been doing more than you asked. You've been giving with a good attitude, and someone else got the promotion. Keep the faith. Some of you have decided, I am only going to date godly men, and you're going on a lot less dates now. Keep the faith. Because don't let impatience impair the harvest you're going to receive. See, when I was in 4th grade, we had this project where we planted, we all got a little cup and we put dirt in it and we put a lima bean in the cup, and we were supposed to water it every day and chart the growth as it growed. Every day you come in and you see it, and after the first few days it's fine, everybody still got dirt, no problem. But then a few more days passed and some of my friends now have stems and sprouts, and I just still got dirt. And in my 4th grade mind, that's a problem, because I'm thinking everybody else has got this and I don't have it, and it's been time and I put water and there's still nothing happening, it's just dirt. And in my 4th grade mind, I'm thinking someone has come in here at night and stole my seed. Like they've taken it, and that's a cup of dirt, and a cup of dirt is not going to grow anything. And this cup of dirt, it's not going to, and someone, or maybe I got a bad seed. That teacher didn't like me, she gave me a bad seed. And all this is going around in my mind, and so one day I just couldn't take it anymore. I take the cup and I spread it all out on my desk and start sifting through the dirt, and do you want to know what I found? A seed that was sprouting, just not so much that it had come above the surface yet. The seed was germinating right on track, just like it was supposed to. And when I was praying about this message, I heard the Holy Spirit say for many of you, don't ruin what you're supposed to reap by putting your hand on it. Don't put your hand on a harvest you're supposed to reap. Let it have its time. Paul wrote the same thing in Galatians 6:9 when he said, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. You know what that means? I love how the New King James Version says, it doesn't say proper time, it says in due season. You know what that means? Every seed has a different germination period, but every seed does bring forth fruit. Your kids aren't going to develop it the same way other people's kids are. Your finances aren't going to all track the same. Your faith isn't all going to work the same way. But here's what I'm telling you. You have a due season. You have a due season. Your marriage has a due season. Your kids, the ones that are lost that you think want nothing to do with God, they have a due season. Your healing has a due season. Your finances have a due season. It is on God's calendar. It is marked. It's coming. Keep the faith. Stay in faith. Don't put your hand on it yet. You have a due season because you reap what you sow and you reap later than you sow. Now here's the third one. You reap more than you sow. Think about this. You don't sow an apple seed and get an apple. You sow an apple seed and get a tree full of apples. Right? You reap more than you sow. And I want you to think about the power of this, because that means that if I'm willing to plant long enough, I can feed the whole world with a single seed. I mean, think about this. I could plant this single seed of corn and I will reap a stalk. And instead of consuming it, if I will replant that stalk, next time I'll get a field. I'll get a row. And then if I'll replant that row, I'll get a field. And if I'll replant that field, guess what else I'll get? I'll eventually feed the world, because if I keep replanting what I reap, eventually, because I always get more than I sow. You know what that should mean for you and I? We should be excited about sowing. We should be thrilled with it. This shouldn't be begrudging. If you'll get this in your mind, move from need-minded to seed-minded, it will change the way you look at giving. It'll change the way you look at serving, because you realize I can't do it without getting more in return. A farmer doesn't show up and sow seed and think it's a loss. A farmer shows seed gladly because he knows there's a field coming behind that one seed. And you need to get that thinking in your mind that for me, I've got no problem being kind to someone. You know why? Because I know if I sow kindness, I am going to reap a bountiful harvest of kindness back at me. I've got no problem serving Kayla. I used to hate to change the trash. I used to hate to help around the house. And over the years of marriage, I got no problem serving Kayla, because I'll sow my service and gladly reap the harvest that comes from a happy wife. I'm fine with that. You need to get excited. It's not begrudging to give of your time and your treasure. You're going to get so much more than you've sown, because you always reap more than you sow. I think about Dave Martin, a friend of mine. Dave's spoken here before. Dave shares a story. He and his wife Christine first got married, and he says, we were very poor. And the way Dave says it, he says, we were so poor we went to KFC to lick other people's fingers. That's how poor we were. And so they were very poor, and they were in a service one time, and there was a project in the church of some sort, and Dave said that the pastor said, there are X amount of people in this room who God is calling to give $500 to this project. And Dave said, immediately he was hoping, oh God, let it be anybody else around me, not me, But he said immediately he and Christine felt compelled to give this $500. And he said, so he checked his checkbook, the balance, and he had $550 in his checkbook. And he's thinking that we can't do this. And he said, all of a sudden the Holy Spirit gave him a verse. And it was 2 Corinthians 9:6. It says, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will reap sparingly. But whoever sows generously will also reap generously. And he said it's like that verse ignited excitement in his heart. Because all of a sudden his eyes went off of the seed and went on to expecting the harvest. Do you get that for your life? Some of you are not serving in the local church because all you see is the time you're going to lose. You don't see what God's going to do in your life because you start sowing service. Some of you, you're never been a part of the church in your finances because all you see is what you're losing. You don't see what you're going to gain. For some, a farmer doesn't show up and think, oh, I lost all that seed. No, he shows up and says, I didn't lose any seed. I just gained a harvest. And excitement starts to burst in your life when you move from need-minded to seed-minded. And all of a sudden, Dave said, I got excited. I wrote that check and gave it. Now, here's what happened. He said, it was tight for the next few months. Tight. They had to navigate some things. And he said, one day Christine is walking through Walmart, and she gets stopped by an employee who says, ma'am, we're shooting commercials for Walmart today, and we'd like to know if you would be a part of one of those commercials. And he explained to her that they shoot hundreds of people in these commercials. They use very few of them, but if by chance they used her, she would be compensated. She thought, well, sure. I mean, what could it hurt? She wrote out, filled out the paperwork, shot the 20-second spot about Walmart, and that was it. Well, a few months pass, and all of a sudden, a letter from Walmart comes to Dave and Christine. They open the letter, and inside the letter says that, in fact, she was chosen and that her commercial spot had showed already several times, and they plan to use it in the future. And enclosed was a check for $500. But you reap more than you sow. And over the next 6 months, that one commercial spot turned into $15,000 paid out to Dave and Christine. Because you don't reap what you sow, only you reap more than you sow. Now here's what you got to get. Get your eyes off the seed and get it onto the harvest. Get some excitement. God doesn't see the seed you're giving. He sees the harvest He wants to pour out in you. Stop saying, I can't compliment them one time. Compliment them one time and you're going to reap 10 times in compliments for yourself. Don't worry about that one offering. Give that offering. God's got more to bless you. But you've got to get your eyes off the seed because you got to realize you're going to reap more than you sow. Now here's the last one. The time to sow is now. Now. See, imagine walking up to a farmer who's overlooking his field, and you walk up to him and say, hey, how's it going? What are you expecting here? He says, I'm expecting a field of beans. Wow. How many beans did you plant? Oh, none. I didn't plant any beans. I'm just hoping that there'll be a field of beans. You'd look at that guy and be like, you're crazy. You're not going to get a field of beans? And that seems funny till you realize that's how so many people are living, that they're expecting to harvest something they've never planted. They're expecting to harvest a good marriage out of one that they'll never sow any servanthood into. They're expecting to have finances that go through the roof when they've never given a dime to anybody else. They're expecting to walk in blessing when they're a blessing to no one. It makes no sense. And so here's what you got to realize. Nothing happens till you plant the seed. I mean, this is nothing but potential till it gets in the ground. But in the ground, this could feed everybody. Nothing happens till you get it in the ground. And here's why we don't get it in the ground. Because today, every person here in one hand has a need and in one hand has a seed. No one here today is seedless. Even the people that are in the biggest financial struggle, you got a seed. Even the people who never complicate anybody, never use their words for good, you've got a seed. Now the problem is you have a need that you want met, but you also have a seed that you don't want to plant. Because when you have a need and you're need focused, all you want to do is receive. All you want to do is keep, because all you see is loss. You never plant the seed because you want to keep the seed. You want to consume the seed. You don't want to plant the seed. But here, and what that looks like in our life is, I don't want to serve my spouse. She needs to serve me. I don't want to say that nice thing to them. They should say it to me. I don't want to use my time for that. I want to use my time for me. You want to consume the very thing that you need that would bring forth and meet the need in your life. Now, here's what I need you to understand. When you have a need, that's the time to sow the seed. You don't sow out of abundance, you sow out of need. A farmer doesn't walk up to a field and want corn and say, I'm just going to pray. He doesn't complain about having no corn. He doesn't pray about having corn. He plants corn when he needs corn. You got a need, it's time to plant that seed. You know what that means? That means for you need to give away what you need most right now. If you need more, you feel like I need appreciation, you need to start sowing it into other people. Because when you have a need, you sow a seed. If you need right now more talent, start using the little bit of talent you got and watch God give you more. If you need more money, now's the time to sow in your offering. If you need more energy, now's the time to get in a gym and sow the energy you have to reap more energy. When you have a need, you need to plant the seed. And I want to finish with this, and this has changed my life, and I need it to change your life as well. I need you to understand this truth. You determined how blessed you are. You determine how blessed you are. So I don't think, no, you determine how blessed you are. Jesus gave you that power. Let me show it to you in his own words. Luke 6:38. Give and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, and poured into your lap. Every church person wants that all day long. But look at the next part. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Okay, I need you to get this. Notice that word measure. It's a picture of something. It's a picture of a container. It's a picture of something that serves an amount. It's a picture of an agent that carries something. And so Jesus says, hey, you control. God doesn't control how blessed you are. You do. Because he's told you that with the measure that you sow, that's the measure you're going to reap. Let me show you to this way. Imagine one day that I'm out and I say, God, I want you to bless me. And God in heaven hears that prayer sitting on his throne, and he goes, wonderful. I love blessing my kids. There's nothing more than I love blessing my kids. Matter of fact, I got all this kingdom of blessing. I mean, there is more blessing up here than you can even imagine. There's just blessing. Unbelievable. I can't wait to bless you. Of course, Joe, I will bless you. Angels, I want you to run to the file room, and I want you to pull the file on Joe Dobbins, and I want you to get me his measure, because he's asked me for a blessing, and I want to use his measure to give him this blessing. Will you do that? And the angels are in there, and they're moving all this dusty old stuff, and they're pulling out, and they say, oh, Rob Devaney, no. And then all of a sudden they get my measure and they run back to God and they say, here, God, here's Joe's measure. And it's the size of an eyedropper. And God looks and says, this is his measure? I said, yeah, God, from all our files, that's the amount he measures out to other people. Okay. He takes that and he measures out my blessing and he drops it. And it hits me, and I think it's a bird, not a blessing. I mean, it's so small, they don't make. And then you know what I do, and it's what you do. I say, God, I want more than that. And here's what he says. Well, that's not up to me. That's up to you. Because you will be measured out with the same measure you use. He said, Joe, I want to pour out more. I mean, I got so much to pour out. But the way I pour it out is with what you pour it out. And I'm telling you, if you'll get this, it will change your life. If you realize you reap what you sow, but that you sow with a measure, and the bigger you can make your measure, the bigger God makes his measure in your life, it will change your life forever. It'll look like this. Hey, Joe wants me to bless him. I want to do it. I love it. Go to the files and get Joe's measure. And the angels get in there and they realize, oh, this is the one. My Lord, look at this. And it takes 4 of them to get around it, and they're toppling, carrying it in. It looks like a big backhoe bucket. And they're bringing it in and say, here, God, here's Joe's measure. This is what he pours out with. And God says, wonderful. Fill it, pressed down, shaken together, running over, and pour it on his life. Because with the same measure that he's poured out on others, I want you to pour it out on his life. Because I don't determine how blessed he is. He determines how blessed he is. I've given him that power. That's what you need to change your circumstances. So let me ask you, what are you tired of reaping? What are you tired of reaping? What are you tired of reaping in your marriage? What are you tired of reaping with your friends? What are you tired of reaping in your job? What are you tired of reaping? Now let me ask, what are you going to start sowing? Say, I feel discouraged. You start encouraging people around you and watch it come down, pressed, shaken together, running over in your life. So, well, I desperately need God to do something in my office. Then you go in there and you start sowing goodwill. You start showing blessing. You start showing good attitude, and watch and see if the climate of that office doesn't change, because it'll come pressed down, shaken together, and running over in your life. Because it is a law that you reap what you sow, you reap later than you sow, you reap more than you sow, and the time to sow is now. And I don't care how long you've reaped bad things, 10 years, you can change your life by starting to sow something better today. You can change your life today because you reap what you sow.